My mother-in-law is absolutely a nightmare. We left a whole nother city to travel to another city so far apart just to get away from her. Yeah, we also had another job as well, but whatever. Guys, this story is so insane. I have 2 kids, and she shows up out of the blue and tells little Junior to get in the car. Grandma's gonna take her on a trip. Well, no one told us, so we thought the worst happened. And it gets so much crazier, because when we get the police involved, she absolutely loses her mind and decides to say this. Life can be cruel, but it can also be beautiful if there are people who accept you for the way you are. This is me, 40-year-old female living in Austin with my husband, Edwin, and my beautiful 2 sons, Elijah and Jose. It's been 8 years since we shifted to Austin because Edwin and I got the same job at the same biotech company here in Austin. Elijah and Jose go to the same convent school in town, and it's also been 8 years since we left our house in Candy, my mother-in-law, alone in Laredo. Well, technically, she's not alone since she has Corbett, her beloved pet dog, and I'm afraid of Corbett, not because it's not well-behaved, but only because I have xenophobia. I'm afraid of dogs in general. I mean, funny enough, I don't have human phobia. Still, I'm scared of mother-in-law. I'm afraid of people these days. I'm afraid to look at my neighbors, stand near the balcony and look down at a passerby, and I don't know what the heck's wrong with me and what's happened to me, and I feel as if a shadow or a few shadows are actually following me. I'm afraid to go out because I constantly feel as if I'm being watched. Edwin says that it's just my mind playing tricks on me, and those shadows, he says, are nothing but an illusion. It might be because we went through challenging times a few weeks ago, and that's the story I'm going to share, but a bit later. My elder brother and I immigrated to the U.S. from Mexico a few years ago. I have no idea about my parents because ever since I came to my senses and truly opened up my eyes, I saw my brother taking care of me. We first came down to settle in Laredo. There was a small biotech company where I got a job with decent pay. That's where I met Edwin. Oh, Edwin O'Neill. My husband. We worked in the same department and slowly developed a likeness for each other, and after a year or so, we decided to marry. It felt like a dream, since I'm not only Mexican, but I'm also an immigrant. People around me were not really able to accept that identity. The locality we lived in had many Mexican immigrants who were ignored by those native residents of the U.S., and I, too, felt pretty invisible. Edwin's affection did not only make me feel seen or heard, but also welcomed in this foreign land that was not so foreign after all. It was then that my mother-in-law showed the first sign of her indifference towards me. She opposed our decision, saying she did not even know whether I had a decent upbringing or who my parents might even be. She didn't want her son to marry a Mexican immigrant on top of everything else. I mean, of course, it's not new to me to see people react this way, seeing that Edwin was adamant about marrying me. She straight away refused to come to our wedding, which obviously did not stop Edwin and me from getting married. I even remember how furious she was that evening because she did not even come to welcome Edwin and me into the house after we had gotten married that very morning. It was after a few days that she started talking to Edwin, and only Edwin, as she still refused to accept me and continued to ignore me. I was fine with her behavior as long as she did not throw me out of the house. After a few years of our marriage, I gave birth to a baby boy. Believe me when I say that for a whole year, mother-in-law did not even talk to me properly. But when it came to giving a son name to my kid, she was the most excited one. She named the little one Elijah. I later found out that she did so because she did not want me to come up with a Mexican name. Who would tell mother-in-law that Elijah is such a common name for people all across the world? She by all means tried her best to belittle me so she could make me feel worse, thinking that I might leave the house one day. She was unable to get rid of me even later. When Elijah was born, her hopes of me leaving the house were shattered because Edwin could even give his life for the family to stay together then. When Elijah turned 2, Edwin and I got an opportunity at a big biotech firm in Austin, and we immediately decided to shift there. But mother-in-law started up her tantrums, asking how we could leave her alone. In the end, Edwin was not able to convince her, nor did he have the energy to put up with her drama any further, and we just left Laredo and decided to hire a nanny to look after Elijah in our absence there in Austin. Everything was going well. Edwin and I had another son after a year, who I named Jose. Jose was among the commonest name in Mexico, and I simply wanted to annoy my mother. Although she has an equal affection for both Elijah and Jose. Or at least I think so. Why am I saying that I'm afraid of her then, right? It's because she would do anything to wreak havoc in our peaceful lives, and she has done it many times before. The first incident happened just a few months ago when Elijah did not return from school. Since Elijah and Jose go to the same school, they returned together on a school bus. One day, as Jose was waiting for Elijah by the school gate, he saw no sign of Elijah, even after waiting for about 30 minutes. He went to the principal's office and I got a call from there. They asked me whether Elijah had come alone that day. The information that Elijah is not at school with Jose almost made me faint on the spot, and I gathered myself and called all his friends and my brother, who lives in Laredo. I mean, I had lost touch with sanity at this point. We waited till evening when Elijah did not return, and we decided to get the police involved. Before we called the police, we reached mother-in-law's calls and received them, telling us that Elijah was in Laredo with her. Well, I was shocked to death. He was in Laredo? How come? And why? I asked mother-in-law these questions, but she refused to answer me, saying she just wanted to meet Elijah. I asked to talk to my son, but she abruptly told me that she would send Elijah home tomorrow, and she sent Elijah by cab. Can you believe that? He's 8 years of age, and she just dared to send him alone with a taxi driver from Laredo all the way here to Austin. I asked Elijah, how did he get to Laredo alone and why? And he just told me an old car stopped before him while he was waiting for Jose, and it looked like Grandma's car. Further, he said that his grandma, my mother-in-law, got out of the car and she waved at Elijah, who was delighted to see her there. Obviously, she popped out of nowhere and my baby completely forgot that he was waiting for Jose. So when mother-in-law asked him to sit in the car, he obeyed. When Elijah realized he had forgotten about Jose, he cried in the car while his grandmother consoled him, saying somebody's going to take him home, don't worry. Seriously? How come someone would just take him home when he and Elijah go together? I felt a bit sickened by my mother-in-law's actions. I mean, she basically abducted my son, her own grandson, and she completely ignored the safety of her little grandson, who helplessly cried after not being able to find his brother by the school gate. I could not see any reason as to why mother-in-law did that. After all, she was quiet for 8 years. Mother-in-law usually calls Edwin, so I asked him if everything was okay. He assured me that everything was fine, so I let it go, and the next day, mother-in-law came to visit Edwin, which she had not done since we left Laredo. It was only us visiting her. She talked to me sweetly, but I remember hearing her mouthing badly about me to Corbett, and I almost felt that she wanted me to hear all the rubbish. At least I had come to know her real face by then. It has not been a few weeks since we ceased contact with mother-in-law, and I felt a little safe, but now I feel as if someone is constantly watching me. I don't know what to do. Will my family and I ever be able to live a peaceful life? First mother-in-law and now shadows? I don't know whether it's just an illusion of my mind or something really fishy. I want to find out if either of these answers is true, and if my doubts really have a material form, or are they just plain doubts? Any advice would be helpful in this situation. What's up, everybody? Mr. Laredo here, a mother-in-law nightmare who is also abducting her own grandson. I do have some updates to check out, so let's just jump in to update number 1. And if you guys are new to the channel, go ahead, click that subscribe button underneath the video. Here is your first update. There's no way one can tell what was going on inside the mind of people. It's so hard to tell whether people are just looking at you or watching you, and I had said how I was constantly feeling that someone or something was following me, watching me, and noticing my every move. What I had felt and what Edwin had called an illusion turned out to be true. Yesterday it was Edwin himself who felt someone's constant gaze. He had gone to the grocery store nearby when he saw a man wearing a navy blue t-shirt standing near a kebab shop. The shop was in front of the grocery store, and the man, Edwin said, was eating nothing, but he kept standing there. When Edwin went inside the grocery shop, the man craned his neck to see inside the shop, and Edwin noticed this, and he, hid near the gate instead of simply going inside. And when Edwin came out and started walking, the man followed him. As Edwin turned into our street and looked back, the man hid behind a pole. Edwin confronted him since he had been following him around town. The man pretended to be clueless, and Edwin warned him that if he saw him around our house or our family, Edwin would also call the police to handle the case. The man vanished into thin air just like that, and later the incident freaked Edwin out so much, just like it's been freaking me out for the past few days. When it came to Edwin, I was still less freaked out than I was today, when Jose and Elijah shared a similar incident. They said they saw a man while going to school in the morning, but when exiting the main gate after school, they saw the same man standing by the trees across from them. It reminded me of the second incident where my mother had Jose abducted. After Elijah, it was Jose who was waiting for Elijah after school, but when Elijah came to the main gate, Jose was nowhere to be found. I had shock that day when the principal called saying that this time Jose was missing. My mother-in-law was staying with us and that time since she had decided to visit us after 8 years. In the morning, she was taking Corbett for a walk and she was still out when I was crying for Jose at home. Edwin did not think this time and called the police. When the police arrived, it was 5 o'clock in the evening and Edwin was talking to the police when mother-in-law returned from, her walk with Jose. Can you believe what her reaction was? She said that if we had called the police to find Jose, then there was no need. Only if I could punch her in the face. That was my first thought. I clasped Jose in my arms and he was sucking a lollipop, which he said was bought by Grandma. I asked what had transpired that afternoon, and he said he was waiting for Elijah when his grandma appeared and she told him, "Dad would pick up your big brother. Come on, kid, let's go to the zoo." I feel like my mom has gone really mad. How could she do that to the kids? I mean, her actions have caused me such depression, and I can't even imagine how she could be so reckless with the children. Edwin confronted his mother then and there. She said that she had sent Jose to a zoo so he could spend a day like a normal kid. As Edwin and I are too busy to take them out even on holidays, I wanted to shout at her that it was none of her business. She should keep her thoughts to herself, Honestly, there was no reason for this woman to come visit us. She must have been simply bored, and so she came to threaten our peace. She succeeded, but before she could do much worse than she already had, Edwin and I mutually decided to send her back to Laredo and cut contact with her for a few weeks. Mother-in-law would not go until we got a restraining order from the court against her. She was barred from meeting my kids without their parents' permission, and then she went quietly and never said a word as to why she visited us. Even now, I'm still guessing it. You see, these days, it is the same fear. Fear of my kids' safety and my husband's safety, and that has made me a victim of insomnia and nightmares. I'm unable to function these days. It feels like my mother has come up with other ways to throw me out of her son's life. But should not she have accepted the situation by now? Accepted that she can't do anything? Shouldn't she have made peace with the reality that I'm her daughter-in-law? Perhaps it's difficult for her, just as it's difficult for me to not suspect her. I don't want to suspect her, especially when she hasn't spoken to us since we sent her back. Maybe I'm dizzy about all this going on, the bell's ringing, and a man's at the door? Update number 2. In the last update, I told you how a suspicious-looking man had knocked at my door and I abruptly ended the update. I wish there was any other way to disclose this dreadful news, but I can see no other. I think I've developed a human phobia after all this. Edwin and I were worried about letting that odd man into our apartment, so I called the police. And surprisingly, the man did not run away. He asked us to let him in, claiming he had information about the person who hired him to keep an eye on my husband, kids, and, well, especially me. 4 people were hired for this job, apparently. The odd man was one of them, and soon 2 cops showed up and handcuffed him. They took him to the police station after he said everything he wanted to say, and the cat that the man had gotten out the bag caused a familiar disaster in my house. It was not just a cat, rather it was a revelation. The man turned out to be a private investigator who had been keeping an eye on our family alongside 3 other men for the past few days. He was asked to transfer the information about all the places we went to and the people we met, and after following us around, he soon started questioning his moral values and ethics, and he saw no reason to follow a happy family. He saw no reason what anyone would want to follow innocent people around for. So he decided to investigate the person who gave him the other 3 men orders as well. Their orders were to notice, especially my movements, and how many and who are the people I meet daily. They were asked to give information about anything suspicious that could prove I was cheating on Edwin. I would never cheat on Edwin, so they would never be able to find that flaw. Anyways, he continued talking about how he had learned from the main person receiving the orders and passing them on to others that they had come from Laredo. I looked at Edwin, who was already shocked to hear the name of the place so familiar to us. The man had finally found out the name as well, and it was Corbett. Edwin and I did not even blink an eye for us, and we both uttered the word, Mom. I feel disgusted to say this, but it was none other than my mother. Corbett is, of course, the dog's name. Mother-in-law's dearest dog, you see. I was furious, but Edwin was angrier than me. I've never seen him this intensely angry before, and I could also sense an embarrassment at having the knowledge that it was his mother who caused his family distress by harassing them mentally and jeopardizing their lives. Since the private investigation is illegal, the man was taken into custody, and it was a crime that mother-in-law had committed. We immediately left for Laredo, first dropping Elijah and Jose at my brother's place. Edwin banged at the door as we reached mother-in-law's place, and as we entered, Edwin looked at his mother and bellowed. How could his mother do that to his own son's family? Mother-in-law looked calm at first, then she went absolutely berserk, screaming at the top of her lungs, and she asked how his son could buy a house in California without her knowledge. I felt a chill run down my spine, and my feet could not feel the ground beneath them. She continued saying that she was still happy that Edwin bought a house, but knowing the fact that he bought it in his wife's name was dreadful for her. Mother-in-law had gotten all this information from their family lawyer, who had helped with mother-in-law's divorce a decade and a half ago. I had no knowledge about the house, but mother-in-law could not believe the look on my face. She said that she had never liked me, nor had she ever accepted me. She tried her best to throw me out of my son's life, and she also revealed that she had Elijah falsely abducted so it could make me feel worse about being a mother who was unable to protect her kid. Mother-in-law doesn't know, but I'm a strong-headed woman. I can trust the devil to save my kids. She tried her next trick, which was to make me hear her negative thoughts about me as she mouthed them to Corbett, and she thought that I might complain to Edwin, which would give her a chance to act innocent. She could make me the villain in her son's eyes, saying that her wife doesn't care for her mother-in-law's feelings. It's not about them, But mother-in-law doesn't even know her son. These petty tricks won't work on him. She's tried to abduct Jose so I could start questioning the security of Austin, and she wanted me to leave the US and go to Mexico. At first I thought, well, mother-in-law wanted to keep some form of contact with her grandsons, but no, that was a lie. She was simply mad about Edwin buying a house for his Mexican wife. We left the matter to the police, and she was taken into custody. With Edwin pressing charges against her, she was legally reprimanded for what she's done. I'm completely drained after all that's happened. We've planned to leave Austin. I don't know what'll happen if we don't do that. I can never trust mother-in-law, nor will I ever be able to trust people that easily. Let's see what God has in store for us. If you guys have ever been in a similar mother-in-law interaction, let me know your nightmare stories. Thank you so much for the help. Okay guys, so we've covered a lot of mother-in-law stories on the channel, but this one has to be one of the top ones in at least a few weeks. I mean, this mother-in-law just simply did not care. And she had a lot of hatred in her heart, all because she didn't want her son to get married to someone from Mexico. I mean, what the heck? What does that have to do with true love? Anyways, let me know what you guys would have done if you were in OP's position. And, well, basically your kid gets kidnapped and you don't know what the heck's going on, and you come to find out, guess who? Oh, mother-in-law is striking again. Drop your comments directly below in the comment section. I would love to hear from you guys. If you're new to the channel, the best way to support me and keep these videos coming is super easy. All you have to do is hit that subscribe button. It's directly beneath this video, and it helps so much. Thank you guys for that. I'll catch you in tomorrow's video, and just remember, it's cool to be kind. See ya.